Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
But you were full of good ideas last week.
Really?
Yeah. So let me just tell you, because you always give suggestions and whatever, and half the time I don't even listen to what you're saying. But I actually listened to you this time, and there's 3 things that you said last time that I did this week.
Oh my God, let's hear it. This is big.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
And I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, the NFL Draft,
More classic Expos games.
and a few corrections.
But first, email delivery.
Okay, Skippy, it's been a week since we last spoke, and I very much look forward to these weekly events because it's actually the most exciting part of my week.
Same here.
And I need you to...
Absolutely.
I need you to do me a favor, actually.
Sure.
Next time we get listener mail, if you could please print the emails on paper, hard copy, and drive them to my apartment, please, so that I could
Can I FedEx?
No. You have to hand deliver them yourself, so that I can then read them on our show.
You have trouble with the email machine?
I don't know how to receive email or how to read email or how to print email, apparently.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's a bit of an inside joke, but I found it funny and you found it funny, so that's all that really matters, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard we made some mistakes last episode.
Well, I did.
Oh. Okay, what were they?
So I do have a couple of corrections. Well, one of them was something that we didn't really remember properly.
You misremembered, like Roger Clemens.
We just didn't remember. Yeah, exactly. We talked about that there was this classic Expos game on TSN where they showed Vlad's 40th home run. It was from 1999, and I was speculating, was that the game, what they call the 40-40 and the call they got wrong, but that wasn't it. So the game they showed was, Vlad hit his 40th home run and 41st in that game, and actually he was the first Expo ever to hit 40 home runs. So I guess that's why they showed this. The game I was thinking about is actually from 2002. I did my research after the fact, and it was the final game of 2002 where Vlad was going for 40 homers, 40 steals, and he got stuck at 39 and hit one, but that actually was fair, but that they called foul. So in the record books, he does have 39. He has a 39-40 season when it should have been a 40-40.
So I did watch the game that you were talking about, the one where he did hit his 40th in 1999.
It was a couple of times.
Yes.
It was on more than once, yeah.
So it was interesting because when they said, you recall that, of course, I boycotted baseball for about a decade.
Yeah.
So all this is new to me. And so when they said on the broadcast that it's the first Expo to hit 40 home runs, I was stunned. I was completely stunned. I thought with Gary Carter and Andre Dawson and Al Oliver and Ellis Valentine and all these guys, I thought for sure one of them must have hit 40 at some point.
Now, I'm glad you segued to this because you're going to think I look stuff up, but this is all out of my head because I know this stuff cold. The Expos for the longest time had the lowest or one of the lowest single season home run leaders of any franchise. For the longest time, the highest number of home runs hit by an Expo player in any season was 32. Now think about that. 32, Josh. That was 1983 Andre Dawson. That was the number. That was the highest home run total in one season for an Expo, which is pretty a low number. And then eventually, that number was broken. I don't remember the year, but it was Henry Rodriguez, believe it or not. He had the one year where he hit 36 home runs, or 37, I don't remember, for the Expos. And that became the Expos' all-time high. And then eventually Vlad hit 39, 40. He had a couple of huge years. And Vlad basically has all the single-season Expo records for that type of stuff. But think about it. For the longest time, from 1969 all the way until 1997, until Henry Rodriguez had his big year, 32 was the high mark for home runs in a season.
I guess it makes sense for a couple of reasons. One is I mean, back then, guys were not hitting 50 and 60 home runs. That didn't happen back then.
70s was the pitching era, right?
Yeah.
So where you did mention Gary Carter routinely hit 25, 28, 29, and hit 30 a couple of times, but as an Expo never got to 32.
And the other reason is, like, Olympic Stadium wasn't exactly a home run hitter's park.
No, huge pitcher advantage.
Yeah,
in that part.
So that's probably why it didn't happen until Vlad did it.
Yeah. Now, the other mistake I made is I completely invented something.
Which you like to do.
I completely made something up. I looked it up after. I'm like, what the hell was I talking about? We were talking about satellite radio, Sirius XM, how there's a free trial.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how you're looking for like alternative stations.
Yeah.
And I said, I think there's one called The Hive. I totally invented that. There's no such station at all. And that I'll just leave it at that. It came to my brain out of nowhere.
But
basically.
It actually, I didn't know that it wasn't a station, but I know why it came to your mind.
Why?
Because if you recall, when we went to Concordia, there was like a lounge that was called The Hive, where you could listen to the Concordia radio station.
You're probably right, actually. It's probably just something in the back of my mind, right? That popped out when you talked about alternative music.
And the other thing is, I actually did work I was a DJ at the Concordia radio station for at least 1 year.
Yeah.
And the call letters were CFLI, otherwise known as C-Fly.
Yeah.
So the flies would go into the hive.
I heard you had huge ratings back in the day.
Oh, I had a great time slot. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. It was great.
That's awesome. So there was actually, I don't know what you have on your list this week, but
the National Football League.
There was actually a sort of sporting event this week. For the first time in forever, we actually did have a live, not a sporting event, but because they weren't playing, but the NFL draft happened. And I want to know if you watched it. I want to know your thoughts on it. If you saw anything, did you watch the NFL draft? I watched the whole first round. Well, not the whole first round. I watched till the Eagles picked, but yeah.
So first of all, I'm stunned that you watched, but yes, I did watch. In fact, I texted you just as the draft was starting, and I hope you heeded my advice, because the draft was on 3 or 4 different channels.
It was too late.
Well, it wasn't too late. I texted you at the beginning.
We started watching and we just left it. But what was so special about ABC?
Because the commercials were so much better. It was almost like watching a Super Bowl. There were all these commercials that I'd never seen before.
That's cool. But, it was a joint production, right? No matter what channel you watched on, you saw the same telecast. I don't know about the commercials.
Oh, yeah, no, 100% the same telecast. But I wanted to see, new commercials that I'd never seen. For example, the insurance companies in the United States have the best commercials. Whether it's Geico or Progressive or whatever. Yeah. There was one, I don't even remember it anymore, but there was one really funny one. Really, just go Google Progressive or Geico commercials, and you can spend hours on YouTube, and it's just pure enjoyment is what it is.
So what you're telling me is you actually didn't watch the draft, you just watched commercials. This is what we've come to.
No. I watched the draft also. I didn't care who picked who. I didn't care when a player went. If it was the first, second, third round. I didn't care about any of that stuff. The only parts that I cared about was seeing the people's homes. Oh,
it was amazing. We had an unprecedented sort of view. I think the draft should be done this way all the time.
By the way, if I could stop for a second there, I agree with you. The draft should be done this way all the time.
Yeah.
I just want you to know the CFL has been doing it this way for about a decade.
No, but not webcams in every coach and GM's home.
They had webcams at each team's war room.
Right. Okay.
That the CFL has done for many years.
Yeah, they had webcams in almost all the first round picks homes where they were with their families.
Even second and third, I think.
Yeah, and then they had more than one camera in the GM or coach or whoever was picking, because they weren't together, right? So there's a couple of awesome. Forget about the actual picks, right? Because look, anybody who thinks they're oh, this guy was a great pick, or oh, this guy was a bad pick, no one knows anything. And I can do a whole 1 hour episode about how no one knows anything, right? Honestly, Joe Burrow was the number 1 draft pick. Great. He may be a great quarterback. He may be a bust. Nobody actually knows, right? And the proof of this is if I start naming you, who are the top, just off the top of your head, Josh, who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now?
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, picked at the end of the first round. Continue.
Drew Brees.
I think he was picked in the second round.
Right?
Tom Brady, where was he picked? 5th round.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger was a first-round pick, but there was like 3 quarterbacks picked ahead of him, right?
Yeah,
so
I know.
Like if you just think of Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league right now, 3 other guys were picked ahead of him, and people were like, "Who's Pat Mahomes? He's too little," So no one knows anything. So what I like to watch is like all the stuff that you were like, all the minutia were so like involved in this stupidity. So like, first of all, Roger Goodell changed clothes halfway through the draft. I don't know if you realize this.
Yeah, well, he took off his jacket and he put on a sweater.
Yeah, so Matthew, my son, was like, maybe he spilled something on his clothes. Why would he just change?
Well,
maybe he's sweaty.
It's like if you're at a concert and they have a wardrobe change.
Yeah.
He's got to do it.
Speaking of wardrobe, Henry Ruggs, the receiver from Alabama, that guy was in his bathrobe.
And that's how he should be, because you're at home and you should be as comfortable as possible at all times. Why would you put on an uncomfortable suit and tie if you're at your own house, sitting on your couch, watching television?
Right, exactly. And then the best was, so the Cowboys pick. and then you see, after you see like these webcams in all these all the GMs and coaches' homes. And believe me, they have nice homes, right? Like some of them look like they have really nice homes. Some of them look like regular houses, a regular person's kitchen, a regular person's living room, And, right before the Cowboys pick, you had Bruce Arians, who's there, and he's like, he's on his patio in his shorts and a t-shirt, just like I would be with you, like any other Joe. And then you go to the Cowboys and you get Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones is on this white leather couch with like a glass table and this huge Dallas Cowboys logo on a screen. It must be a 50-inch screen behind his head. And the first thing my son said, and this is like using the young people's lingo now, he's like, "Oh my God, look at this. This is so extra." Okay? So I was like, okay, I guess that's the lingo, right? Like that's the teenage lingo. This is so extra. And it was just like out of place, right? Because you saw all these people's homes and then there's Jerry Jones. Then I only heard the next day he was on a yacht. He was in his private yacht.
He's self-isolating. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, actually. We should all be on yachts.
Well, I'm not sure that everybody was self-isolating because there's a lot of people in some of those people's homes,
I hope that those people actually live in those homes.
They looked like there was quite a few players that had their girlfriends there.
Oh, yes. And by the way, some of the girlfriends were scantily clad.
They certainly were. It's super weird, right? Because let's say you're waiting for your boyfriend to get drafted, right? So you come to his house and you're basically just watching the draft on TV. But like, oh, I better get dressed up. I'm going to be on webcam.
Well, if they went to the draft, they would have gotten dressed up, so they got to dress up for this too.
They would have. It's like these people that get dressed up and they make like a Academy Awards party. You've heard of this, right? People come in tuxedos and evening gowns into your house, and we have a big Academy Awards party.
I could see you guys.
Well,
doing
people
that
don't know that. People don't know that when we do our end of year episode where we give out all the awards, we are in tuxedos usually.
That's true. Yes, because it's the only time that we're actually together, and so I figure I should dress up once a year.
Oh my God! Someone asked me last week, like I forget who it was. Like, and a lot of people have asked you, I'm sure, the same thing. How are you guys still doing your podcast? First of all, why are you still doing your podcast after all this time? And we do it because we love to do it, right?
Yes.
I don't care if we have 1 listener. I don't care if we have 1,000 listeners. I love to do this. So that's number one. But like, someone asked me, what are you guys talking about? And I said, since all this COVID-19 stuff and no sports being played, I actually enjoy recording these episodes more. And I don't know if I enjoy recording them more because, like we said at the beginning, it's what you look forward to the most after being cooped up in your house all week. But and it's part of that, I think. But I like talking about this stuff more than the games. That then when we were talking about like what happened in week 17, week 15 of the NFL last year, or what happened this week in the NHL, or what happened in the NBA playoffs, or like I like this stuff better. I think it's more fun.
I agree with you, and this is the beauty. The beauty of this is we didn't have to change anything when all these measures, came into play. That you have to self-isolate, you can't leave your apartment, you have to wash your hands. We haven't changed anything. We're still doing the exact same thing we've been doing. So we have a lot of practice. We have a lot of practice at this, actually.
We do.
Just a couple of things about the draft that you didn't mention.
Sure.
Well, so we talked about all the different houses. So another house that, most of the houses they showed, any one of these man caves, if you will, would be a great place for a Super Bowl party. Of course, they're all football people, so obviously they want to have big screens and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
So one house that wasn't as good as Jerry Jones's Yacht, but Cliff Kingsbury, did you see his house?
Yeah, he's got a nice place.
He's got a fire pit outside in the yard, first of all.
Yeah. Well, all the places in the warm weather places, they were outside, right?
And also he was dressed up like he was going clubbing later. Like he had a fancy shirt on, like nice shoes and everything. Like he's like a fashion plate, this guy.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see all that stuff, right?
Now,
another house that looked good too was Sean McVay, the Rams. He looked like he's got like a really nice home, that guy.
I don't recall that one.
He had like, you could see out his window, and he had like this really manicured lawn backyard set up with these bricks. I don't want to call them bricks, but like stone steps, but surrounded by little grass cutouts. Like it was quite fancy. Yeah.
So at the other end of the spectrum, I don't know if you saw Bill Belichick's kitchen.
No.
Okay, you have to Google this because Bill Belichick, he's just in his kitchen. There's like 4, old chairs and a table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his dog is there with him, and like his hair isn't even combed, and he's just sitting there like as if your son was doing homework at his kitchen table. It's exactly like that. You wouldn't even know that he had anything to do with the NFL or with the Patriots. Like there's no logos in the background. There's no screens. Nothing.
Yeah. Was he wearing a hoodie?
I don't know if he was wearing a hoodie. I think he was wearing something with cut off sleeves. And, he has his pencil in his ear or in his mouth or whatever. Literally, like he's just doing his math homework. Like you wouldn't even know that it was an NFL. You have to Google it because it's very funny.
That's perfect Belichick. I told you I turned it off after the Eagles picked because we were already watching for like 2 hours, so.
The other funny one, did you hear the Mike Vrabel story?
Mike Vrabel, I saw it on Twitter. There was a guy in the bathroom sitting on a toilet in the background.
Okay, so there's a few things. There's 2 people standing right behind him. One is his son, and the other one's his son's friend, and they're dressed like his son is wearing Vrabel's old jersey from when he was a Pro Bowler, and the other guy is wearing, those weird costumes that people wear sometimes at hockey games. They cover you literally from head to toe, and you can't see the person's face.
Yeah, I saw.
So wearing one of those, except his face was visible, and then in the background you see like a mirror. And so the mirror is reflecting something else that's going on the other side of the room. And it looks like there's a guy sitting on the toilet taking a dump.
It really looks like it.
But it's not.
But like if you were, that means the door's open.
Exactly.
Right? Which would be weird. Right?
So it's actually just a guy sitting on a piece of furniture.
Looking at his phone.
I think he happens to be wearing short pants.
Yeah.
So his legs are exposed.
It's pretty funny.
But it is pretty funny, yes.
Yeah. The NFL draft gave us all kinds of great stuff.
Yes. Now, since we're talking about the NFL, I haven't spoken to you since Rob Gronkowski came out of retirement and got traded.
Yeah, whatever.
So when I first heard about this, all I heard was Gronkowski traded to Tampa Bay. And I'm like, hold on, how does a guy who's retired get traded? Yeah. And then I find out afterwards that he came out of retirement.
Yeah, I guess they have his rights I think they do it on purpose, right? Because otherwise, if you don't like your team, you're just like, okay, I retire. And then
Which is what he did.
Come back and then I know, but then you come back and your team's screwed if they don't own your rights still, which wouldn't be fair, right? So
I don't know if he ever filed his official retirement papers, to be honest.
There's no chance he did, but maybe his agent.
Because he's still getting paid the same as the contract that he had before.
He was working for WWE. He was the host of WrestleMania.
I know, but I mean, his contract with Tampa is the same exact contract he had with New England before he retired. So I don't think he ever filed his retirement papers.
Look, I've listened to a bunch of stuff and read a bunch of stuff about Brady and Gronk and whatever, and I just think it's so much to do about nothing. Like Brady was a league average quarterback last year. Like I know Brady was great, and Brady's the greatest of all time, and I'm not going to deny that. Although I don't think he's the greatest of all time. I think he's like top 2 or 3, but whatever. But he was a league average quarterback last year, and he's 40 whatever years old, and which he's not getting any better. He's actually going to a new team, which is it's going to sound weird, but like all he knows is one system, the same system that he always used. So who's to say he's going to like thrive in whatever Tampa's going to do? And I could be completely wrong. And I'll play this back when and if the NFL season starts and Brady's throwing for 400 yards a game. I'll be happy to play this back. But like, I just don't think he was going to do well anyways. And Gronkowski wasn't like a factor really in his last season anyways for the Patriots. He can't stay on the field because he's always injured. Do I think Gronkowski could still be okay if he stays healthy? Yes. Will he stay healthy? Doubtful. So, like, I just think it's a lot to do about nothing. I think Tampa's made themselves relevant because of the moves, but they're not going to be really relevant on the field. I just don't think they are.
Okay, so I'm glad you went on there because it gave me a chance to do some research while you were talking, and I didn't hear a word you said, which is fine. But I think you and I agree, because what I was going to say is that all these people who now have Tampa Bay as a Super Bowl contender or a Super Bowl favorite or whatever.
Come on.
These people are drunk because, as you said, Tom Brady is, what is he? 43-ish, 42, something like that. He's old. And even though Gronk is only 30, you and I both know that 30 is kind of old for a professional athlete already these days.
His body is much older than that when you can count all the injuries he's had.
Now, granted, he did take a year off, so, maybe a lot of his aches and pains had time to heal or something, whatever. But this reminds me, reuniting these two guys on a different team, it reminds me of, I don't know if you remember the St. Louis Blues in 1995-1996. So let me just name you some of the players on that St. Louis Blues roster.
Okay.
Of course, Wayne Gretzky was there.
Right.
I don't know if you recall, Grant Fuhr was on that team. Glenn Anderson was on that team. Shane Corson was on that team. Jeff Courtnall, Adam Creighton, J.J. Daigneault, Dale Hawerchuk was on that team. I don't know how many games he played. Charlie Huddy, and of course, Brett Hull was on that team too. Anyway, I can go on and on and on. Al McInnes was on that team. So it was a bunch of players that had great careers previously on other teams, and they put them together, and what did they do? Nothing. I mean, they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think Tampa Bay is going to make the playoffs. Esa Tikkanen was on that team, by the way.
I don't know if they are. Why do you say that?
I think Tampa will be a wild card team.
I mean, they could be in contention, which for wild card team, which for them would be great.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess if you're the owner and the GM of Tampa, that's you've somehow you turned yourself around, but I mean,
but I don't consider them a Super Bowl contender.
Oh, no chance.
Like if they win one playoff game, I'll be maybe surprised. I don't know if surprised is the right word.
I look at this in like a Moneyball type of situation. You have to look at like, is Brady going to replace the stats of the quarterback from the year before? Like, people forget. Now, I know he threw 30 interceptions, but Jameis Winston still threw for 5,000 yards. Holding up a big 5, right? He threw for 5,109 yards and 33 touchdowns. Brady last year threw for 4,000 yards and 24 touchdowns. So, like, can Brady throw for 5,000 yards? No, he can't. So he can't. Anyways, I love that we're talking about actual sports, but whatever,
That's the other funny thing. I keep hearing, because I watch ESPN all day, every day now, because it's really the only thing to watch.
Well, speaking of that, okay, continue.
So they talk about all these things, Brady's going to Tampa. They have all these good wide receivers. They have all these good tight ends. And now they just added Gronkowski. And then they keep mentioning, they say, need I remind you that this team threw for 5,000 receiving yards last year? Yes, the team did do that. But the guy who did it isn't on the team anymore. So that's kind of important.
It's kind of important. Exactly. So I'm glad you mentioned the ESPN and SportsCenter. Did you notice that? Did it start this week or did it start at the end of last week? TSN's finally back on the air.
It started last week.
Right. So there is like SportsCenter with Rod Smith and his
It's only 30 minutes though. It's not an hour,
Yeah.
and then they just keep repeating the same one over and over again all night long.
But I did see a couple of panel shows with hockey insiders and stuff like this, so
Yeah, and Jay and Dan. Jay is in his kitchen, or Jay's in his basement and Dan's in his kitchen.
Yeah. Jay and Dan, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But I mean, if you watch those shows, so, there's like a minute or two at the beginning where you see the host, or hosts, plural, and then they cut away to, this canned report that you've already seen 3 times that same day.
You're right. This shows.
So it's anyway.
Yeah.
But, they're doing what they can.
Major League Baseball.
So I know you wanted to talk about, I think you wanted to talk about the Red Sox. I saw a sneak peek of your screen before we started.
Yes. Well, I have a few baseball things, if we can.
Yeah, sure.
So we were talking about the Expos and how they showed, the Vlad 40th homer game. They also showed, and I don't know why, they showed the game where Tony Gwynn got his 3,000th hit. It happened against the Expos, of course.
Yeah.
Which actually I watched and was very annoying to watch because it wasn't Dave Van Horn. It was the San Diego Padres announcers. So really, I had no interest in watching this at all. The entire broadcast was slanted completely towards the Padres. And you know that every team other than the Expos, the announcer is always biased completely.
Well, I mean, Van Horn was a little biased, but not as bad. He was a total pro.
Van Horn was more like, he was, I wouldn't say neutral, but at least, he was what I grew up with. And so the first time I heard another announcer for another team, I couldn't believe how biased that guy was.
Right.
So anyway, so this guy, the whole game, he's like taking shots at the Expos, making fun at the sparse crowd, and even making fun of Yuppie sometimes. Anyway, it was annoying to watch. But what I couldn't believe is, so Gwynn got his 3,000th hit in the first inning, that game. Mm-hmm. And right then and there, in the middle of the game, the entire bench for the Padres comes out of the dugout. They all walk over to first base to congratulate him. The whole team, his mother and his family, they come onto the field. This is in the middle of the game. The game is actually happening, right? There's like 1 out in the first inning or 2 outs or whatever it is. They stop everything. They go and congratulate him. It takes a few minutes. Like, if I'm the opposing pitcher on the mound, I'm pissed off at this point.
Yeah, but they probably told him ahead of time, by the way, when he gets his hit, we're going to do a little something.
I'm sure they did. And I think Gwynn ended up getting 2 or 3 more hits that game. So, like, he had a great game and whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously a great player. Nothing against Gwynn. It was a little strange to see that. I don't think you would see that these days in the middle of the game. I don't know that you would see it. I think they would wait until the next game, or at least until the next home game for that team, and then do a proper ceremony prior to the game.
Possibly.
Anyway, so speaking of Expos, I don't know if you know what's on this Sunday night.
No, I don't know.
This Sunday night, they're showing the Pedro Martinez Reggie Sanders game.
Jesus Christ. I gotta find a picture. I gotta find the picture. I have a picture. Okay, I was in Edmonton, Alberta. Now, it's amazing that you tell me the game, and I know exactly the game. Okay,
I know you know the game.
I was in Edmonton.
What were you doing in Edmonton in 1994?
This is when me and Diane took a trip across Canada by train. So I remember watching this game. We went out for dinner. We came back. We're exhausted. And we had walked around the city all day. And, at that time, the Expos, not all the Expos games were televised, and this one was. So I was watching the game, and I still have the picture of myself because the guy's pitching a no-hitter, right? He's pitching a perfect game. And then he hits Reggie Sanders, and somehow Reggie Sanders is like freaking out, like he hit him on purpose. Dude, he's pitching a perfect game. He's not trying to hit you. Like he can't. I could never, ever to this day wrap my head around like that whole situation with Reggie Sanders. I can't wait to watch that game again. But I do have a picture of myself watching the game. My wife girlfriend at the time, took a picture of me watching, and I have my head down and my head is in my hands and I'm all upset like at what's going on. It's pretty funny.
So the game was originally played on April 13th, 1994.
There you go. Exactly.
And this Sunday happens to be April 26th. So I think that's part of the reason they're doing that. But anyway.
Whatever. Okay.
Then next Sunday, not this coming Sunday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're showing the game from May 2nd, 1987. Do you know what happened on that date?
May 2nd, 1987. So this is the team with Tim Wallach getting a lot of RBIs and Tim Raines having a great year. It's the Tim Raines game.
His first game that year.
Right. Okay.
It was the NBC game of the week.
Yeah, it's against the Mets.
That's right.
Yeah, and he hit a grand slam to win it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's on a week from tomorrow.
That's a good game. And there's another Expo game on this week on MLB Network. They're showing the David Cone no-hitter against perfect game against the Expos.
Yeah, I don't have as much interest in that one.
No, me too.
So yes, you did mention the Red Sox, and
yeah.
So
you read the whole report.
I didn't read the whole report. I started to read it before you called me, but I mean, for those fans who thought that the Houston Astros got off easy, I wonder what they think about how the punishment was meted out to the Red Sox. Because
what was the punishment in the end? They just fined them.
They took away a second round draft pick in this coming draft. Yeah. And this guy, JT Watkins, who I'd never heard of until Wednesday, you probably never heard of until just now, till I said his name. He is the Red Sox video replay coordinator.
Okay.
He has been suspended without pay for a year.
Oh.
And next year he's allowed to come back to work, but not in that capacity.
Well, what is he gonna do?
I don't know. And that's it. That's the whole punishment. And
did the findings, did they show that they had a systematic cheating system?
So again, I didn't read the whole report, but what I'm figuring out slowly is that because he was the video replay coordinator, he had all this access to video footage, and so he was able to figure out, when there's a runner on second and teams always change their sign sequence.
Yeah. So
he was able to determine the sign sequence when there was a runner on second.
Okay.
But apparently he only did this occasionally, first of all, apparently. And apparently he only told a few players. But
I think it's okay to try to figure it out. What's wrong with that? As long as you're not relaying it during the game in real time via technology. Well, like if you go back and look at old games and you say, oh, he's tipping his pitches, that's fine, no?
Yes. But if the runner on second is able to do it in live time, I'm totally cool with that as well.
Yeah.
He was doing it like during the game, he would see something, and then next time there was a runner on second, he would I don't know who he would tell.
It's a gray area a bit.
Now, there's a quote from him in one of the stories I read. He said, anytime any player came by my video screen to look, I always made sure they couldn't see. I covered it up. Now, I don't believe that for a second.
Oh, come on.
And also it says that he only a few players knew about it, and the manager didn't know about it, and the general manager didn't know about it, and the owner didn't know about it. I don't believe that either.
Well, if the manager didn't know about it, how come they fired him?
They fired him because of what he did with the Astros. That's what they said.
Okay.
And he was suspended because of what he did with the Astros, not because of what he did with the Red Sox. So now there's all this speculation that they're going to rehire him next year when he's allowed back in baseball.
Okay.
Anyway, I find it a little bit ridiculous that they got off so easy. If in fact they did cheat. Now, how do you determine, well, he only told a couple of players and he only told them it only happened a few times.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Wow. What else you got?
Oh, well, it's funny you should ask. Because after we stopped recording last week.
Oh, Jesus. You're going to talk about this?
We
went down a rabbit hole. We almost never came out of it.
Well, we did come out of it. So we started talking after we recorded. We started talking about, really bad trades that the Expos made in their history. And there was one that I couldn't remember the player, but I'm like, oh, this was the worst trade. We got this pitcher. I don't remember what year it was. I think he came from the San Francisco Giants. He pitched like 4 innings for the Expos, and then he never threw another pitch again in his career. It was the worst trade ever. And
I just need to set the scene. Because we started talking about this and we couldn't figure it out. And like, how do you Google something where you don't know the name of a guy? You just know there was a trade. You suspect there was a trade.
Oh, I knew there was a trade.
And you knew it was a pitcher for a position player, but you didn't remember the year. You didn't remember much of the details. Like, how do we even figure this out? And boy, oh boy, we were on the phone for like an hour at least after. And we found a website that shows you every trade ever in Major League history, and you could filter by team. And we went year by year of every Expos trade ever. And the thing is, we started in the wrong years, right? We started in the 90s.
Well, I thought it was the mid 90s. It turned out to be the mid 80s.
Right. I'll let you continue.
And so I did have the team right. It was a trade with the San Francisco Giants, so that was right. Yeah. And it was a pitcher that we acquired, so that was right. Yeah. We couldn't figure it out. So we got off the phone and we didn't figure it out, even though we had that website with every single trade. Then I went and I don't know what, I made lunch or something. I took a shower.
No, when we got off the phone, we thought it was Rex Hudler for someone else.
Scott Ruskin?
Yeah, we settled, like, you were like, that must be it. And you were even like, and I really like Rex Hudler, so it makes sense why I was upset about it. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then you call me back like an hour later. You're like, I found it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Scott Ruskin. It wasn't that trade. Yeah, an hour later, I finally figured it out. It just came to me in my head. I didn't Google it. I didn't look for it. It just came to me in my head. It was.
Oh my God.
It was Fred Brining, and I was right because he pitched 6 innings for the Expos, and then he never pitched again in his career.
It was for Al Oliver.
And he actually did the previous year. He had good stats the previous season with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so yeah, that was weird last week.
Yeah.
We were like, it just goes to show when you start to try to figure something out, like we got lost in like Expo stats. It was pretty wild. Actually, I love doing that stuff, so I didn't mind it at all.
So we should talk about TV because we haven't talked about TV at all this week.
I just want to talk about one more sports-related thing.
Okay.
I texted you this week that I'm done with Bill Simmons.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the story because I've been done with Bill Simmons for years.
There's not a story. It's just like, okay, so I mean, I'm assuming you haven't watched like The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan thing.
No, you said you weren't going to watch it.
No, I may end up watching it at some point. It's not, for me, it's not like appointment viewing. I'm not like dying to watch it. I think it's pretty crazy that they're able to make 10 episodes out of one thing, but why? Fine, whatever.
But, I haven't watched 1 minute of it, but because I've been watching ESPN all week, I feel like I've watched the whole thing because that's all they talk about, and I've heard every possible story, so I don't even need to watch it anymore.
Exactly. I feel like I got the complete synopsis of the first 2 episodes by listening to whatever. And Bill Simmons, they're breaking this down, ESPN and not just ESPN, but Bill Simmons too. Like they're breaking this down like as if it was like a game that happened, and this and that, and like now Bill Simmons is not everybody's cup of tea, and I've stuck with him all these years, and I stuck with him because I get it. He's a fan, he's more of a fan than an analyst. But when it comes to basketball, he does know his stuff. But like, I'm just listening to this, and it's probably something that's turned people off from him over the years many, many times. And then it just hit me. It just hit me when I was listening to this last episode. I'm like, I cannot listen to this guy anymore. He's such a freaking know-it-all. He thinks he knows so much more than everybody else. He's talking about stuff as if, like, this is the way it is. Like, so he's talking about Scottie Pippen, and he's like, oh, exactly what he says. He's like, all of us Celtics fans knew in the end of the whatever season, he goes, in that offseason, all the Celtics fans knew. He's like, we were getting Scottie Pippen. He goes, there was this trade rumors, and all the Celtics fans basically were like, oh yeah, we're getting Pippen. And I was like, what? Like, excuse me? I'm a Celtics fan. I never even heard of these rumors before, right? And I know he's in Boston, and I know he's much closer to the team than me. But you can't just say, like, everybody knew Pippen was going to be a Celtic. First of all, he never was a Celtic. So, like, obviously it didn't happen. But, like, just the way he's talking about it was like, oh, yeah, everybody knew. And then it just hit me. It hit me like the same thing that probably turned you off after the first 2 times you listened to him, and after 1,000 times of him name dropping and being a know-it-all, I was like, I'm done with this guy.
I'm very happy to hear this because he's exactly how you describe him. He's a know-it-all, and he thinks that his opinion is gospel, and everyone else's opinion doesn't even matter. You know, and like his version of history or whatever it is the version.
Right. And the thing that bothers me about him is that he's such a Boston guy, and that's fine because I'm a Boston guy too, in a sense, right? The Celtics I like the Celtics, you know, and I do like the Red Sox, but like he, for a Boston guy, and the thing that, like, I mean, he knows zero about hockey, zero, right? And he'll claim to be a Bruins fan when they get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Or they get to the playoffs, he knows zero. He knows actually less than zero. He's like the price of oil right now.
Well, it's like when Tony Kornheiser talks about the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, but at least Tony comes at it and he's like he jokes about it. He's like, he knows that he doesn't know anything, you know? But Simmons tries to pretend like he can have a conversation about the NHL. Anyways, all that to say is I did unsubscribe from the BS Report podcast after literally being subscribed forever. In all the different versions, because there was the Ringer version, which is now, but then there was, before that, there was Grantland, but even before that, it was just the BS Report on its own, ESPN, and then even before that on its own, without ESPN, and I've been with him forever. But I am going to still listen to many of the Ringer Network podcasts. Like, I haven't given up on all the others, because I do like many of the other podcasts and many of the other hosts. So that's my rant about Bill Simmons, Josh. You can talk about TV now. I don't have anything to say about TV.
Well, before we get to that,
yeah.
So it's interesting. We talked about Bill Simmons. We talked about the Boston Red Sox. We talked about the New England Patriots a little bit. Mm-hmm. We should have had Schnerbs on this episode, is what we should have done.
Well, actually, I think we can. I really was thinking about Schnerbs this week, because I'd like to get his take on the Brady, Gronk, Tampa, and not about what I talked about before. Not about, like, is Brady going to do well? Like, I want to know, like, as a Patriots fan, like, is he torn? Did he take a side? Is he more, like, on Belichick's side, and, like, it's the team that matters, and it's the jersey, and it's the logo, you play for the logo? Or is he a Brady fan? And is he going to follow Brady to Tampa and root for both? Like, I'd love to sort of get his take on it. I was going to actually text him this week just to get a few, like, quotes in text or in print and talk about it, but then I would have to drive those to your house, print them out, and drive them to your house, you know.
Which would take a while.
Yeah, it would take a while.
Well, you couldn't even come in. You'd have to drop them off at my door and leave. Like, we couldn't actually see each other.
You know, I have a friend in New York where FedEx and UPS and the post office, they won't deliver to his building.
Why not?
I don't know the circumstances. He told me they won't. He can't get any deliveries at his building. They won't come there. And so he's delivering his stuff, groceries and stuff, to, like,
the neighbor,
like 2 blocks away. It's like when Elaine tried to order the fish from the Chinese restaurant on Seinfeld, and they wouldn't deliver past her block. You know this episode?
This supreme flounder, it says first time served in America. Is that true?
What number?
47?
Yeah, first time. What else?
That's it.
Address?
78 West 86th Street, apartment 3E.
That's south side. Sorry, we don't deliver below 86.
I'm not below.
Yes, you are. Street itself is boundary.
Your guy can't cross to my side?
If we deliver to you, then what? 85th Street, Wall Street, Mexico, 84th Street?
All right, fine. I'll just cross and meet him.
Sorry, but only for those who live within boundary.
TV?
All right, so what are you watching?
So I'm still watching Ozark. I'm on season 3 now. I have to tell you, it's, spoiler alert, too many people die in this show.
You haven't seen anything yet. Have you finished season 3?
No, I'm like halfway through season 3.
Well, keep going, man. It's only gonna get worse.
It's like
of people dying.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed, which you probably did not notice, in season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah, both season 1 and 2. There's a lot of scenes in that. What's the name of the motel that he buys? The Blue something?
The Blue, yeah. And it's just out of the picture now, right?
Yeah, it's not even in season 3.
No, because now they have the casino. They moved on to bigger and better, you know?
Right. Anyway, so there's a lot of scenes in the bar at that Blue motel, whatever it's called.
Yes, you're right, there is.
And there's a lot of times where they're watching football.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that every single football clip is a CFL game?
I did not notice that.
They are. Every single football clip in that show is a CFL game.
That's wild. That's totally wild.
Um,
Anyways, are you enjoying Ozark?
I am. I watched 2 episodes. I'm gonna be finished season 3 like this weekend.
Right. Okay. The amazing thing with me is we haven't started binge watching any new show. Like, honestly, it's kind of weird, you know? Like, we're watching sort of week to week shows, which is a bit strange, you know? Like I told you, we're watching Survivor, we're watching Cardinal on CTV, and then another show that I forgot to tell you, we're watching Top Chef. So it's like we're watching actually regular TV, not so much Netflix these days.
I did watch some regular TV this week. It's funny, you mentioned earlier in this podcast Moneyball.
Yeah.
Moneyball was on in French this week. And I watched it.
In French?
Yes.
Oh, God. Good.
I mean, I've seen it so many times, I know what they're saying. Plus, I understand French, so I mean, it's not a big deal.
You're practicing your French.
Yes.
Good for you.
So since you have now deleted some podcasts from your library,
Yeah.
I have a new one, well, sort of new, that you might be interested in.
Oh, sure. What is it?
It's actually season 2 of Against the Rules, which is the Michael Lewis podcast.
Oh, okay. I'll give that a try.
So season 2 starts the first week of May.
I liked some of season 1. Like, I thought some episodes were good. Some episodes I was like, I can't listen to this, you know? But, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of desperate for some new podcasts. So, like, I'll definitely look it up. You know, that's for sure.
So this year, it's not about refs, though.
No, what is it about?
It's about coaches.
Okay, so in the first one, he was like about like the refs in your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like basically like the rules in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so now I guess it's going to be like sort of coaches in the world.
Not just coaches in sports, but all kinds of coaches.
No. In like coaching roles, like within real world situations.
Yeah.
Okay, good. He's really good, Michael Lewis.
He is,
like,
yes.
He's really good, you know? I mean, like Moneyball, like it's unfortunate. It's not unfortunate because it's good that Moneyball is known because of the movie. But like the movie is basically like 2 chapters of the book. You know, like it's like they took a part of the book and they said, we're going to make this into a movie. Right. But the book is so much more than that. That's why when I heard that Moneyball they were making a movie with Moneyball called Moneyball and it was with Brad Pitt, I was like, how is it possible that they could turn this book into a movie? It never seemed like it could even work. But of course, you know, they're screenwriters and they figure out how to dramatize stuff. And
I think that happens a lot when a book comes out first and then they make a movie about it. I think they really only make a movie about 1 or 2 chapters, not the whole book.
But the thing with this book is it's nonfiction, the book.
Correct.
It's almost like a reference book. You know what I mean? Like it's a nonfiction book.
Yes.
It's not made up story and it's anyways, yeah, it's the movie's great. I love the movie and the book is actually fantastic also. Before we sign off, remember you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and of course Spotify. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. As always, you can get all the links to everything I just talked about on our website, skipandjosh.com.
We leave you with this.
You will be happy to know this. I'm sure you already know this. And it might even lead you to move to Florida. But wrestling is an essential service in Florida.
I know, it's so stupid. Because you know why wrestling's an essential service in Florida?
No, I don't.
Because the governor of Florida is a moron. That's why.
Hold on. Isn't every governor in the United States a moron? Look at the governor in Georgia.
Not all of them. Some are reasonable people, but this guy is clueless.
The governor of Georgia is clueless as well, by the way.
The governor of Georgia. Oh my God! Like people don't realize we have a very good friend that lives in Atlanta, and we were on a house party this week using the house party app. We're very hip people, and he was telling us all about what's going on in the state of Georgia. I don't know if he's gonna really leave his house, even if they do reopen.
Well, now even more.
I don't want to turn this into a COVID-19.
No. But even now he should leave his house even less now that the state is open.
Yes, much less. So the only thing I wanted to tell you, and you already know, but I'll just tell the listeners because I like to toot my own horn. Brush with fame this week. I like to tell you when famous people like my tweets. Well, our tweets comes from the show account. I posted something on kind of political thread with these weird anti-vaxxer women. Anyways, I don't need to get into the reason why I posted or what I posted. Anybody could look up our Twitter account at Skip and Josh and they can see the whole history. But I got a lot of likes. I started to get a bunch of likes on this tweet, and then all of a sudden I get a notification. Iggy Azalea liked your tweet, and I was like, "Well, this is like a fake Iggy Azalea account." No, it had the little blue check mark, and I looked it up. 7.9 million followers. It was really her. So I was like, I showed my kids, and they were all they were both very, very impressed. And my daughter even said, "Send me a screenshot. I want to send that to my friends to show them."
So this is how to impress your kids now. You get it. You tweet something that Iggy Azalea likes, and now your teenage kids actually think you're somewhat, a little bit, maybe cool.
For 3 years, I asked my daughter, "Can you post something about my podcast on your Instagram?" And
she said no.
I've been shut down often, like every single time. Right, that's the show for this week, Josh. I will talk to you same time next week.
Perfect.